else who are not, we are all with you on this. And there's a galaxy of people who have all the expertise to bring in this change. Ma'am, I'm very keen to know, and all of us would be keen to know the process that we adopt to take this further, to decide on the non-negotiables and beyond. And let's plan for the next 50 to 60 years. And all the point that has been said by everybody is very, very relevant, and that it's a huge task at your hand, and you are not alone in this. So I am want to put this on record that we are all with the department to work together with you, so that we can take all the relevant ministry, the private sector, the election commission, and everybody else in this, that nobody else can ever ignore disability from henceforth. That's all. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Yes, good afternoon, ma'am. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak on this. I will support Manusha sir's point that the expert group who are expert in particular field should be also consulted in this, who have been working in this field. Because we actually, like ICT or content accessibility as per section 42 of RPWD Act, we have been working in this field from 2018, 2017. We exactly know that what is the problem. We will put our points. Let other also put our points. Because recently, ma'am, you might be aware that the theater accessibility guideline was issued. But there are so many loopholes which has been left in that today, if you see, post the implementation of guideline on 5th December, you have a movie which is coming, Pushpa 2. And we realize that prior to this guideline, at least all the theater in India was accessible for visually impaired. Visually impaired could walk in any theater and listen to the audio description if it was available on any app. I'm not saying my app, any app, which was working in all the theaters. But today, the situation is such, application which is working in 10 theater is being allowed. And how it is being managed, what is the loophole has been left, who is being responsible. When we question this, then everyone who is there in, I mean, every organization whose name is there, they say this is not my responsibility to check whether it is working in other theater or not. So these kind of a loophole should not be left, so that the people are getting disturbed. Solutions has to be universally designed. So the principle and the guideline, the principle of universal design should be followed in toto. Today, people are expecting that the closed captioning you read on the second screen on the mobile, how many people are comfortable to read a closed captioning on the mobile and see two screens at one time? Is there any survey? No, but this is just made as a solution that, okay, we are providing you on the mobile, you watch the closed captioning. Our application provides it, but still we are not ready to provide this solution. We are saying that this is not the app solution. Because if you speak to someone who cannot listen, the deaf community, it's a problem for them. But there is no way to address. And it has been, the grievance mechanism should be so tight, and the penalty should be so tight on all these organizations that they do not actually try to take advantage of any loophole, and we will have to keep up with them. Because like any other rule, we understand that if a rule is made, people try to break it. So automatically there should be a very quick method to seal that gap. Because obviously, I agree that the day one, we cannot make everything right. But yes, the guidelines should be strict, watertight, and this kind of a technical information and knowledge should go inside it while drafting it. So I would humbly submit that we are up for giving any support to the department, that whatever is required at any level to make them give our viewpoints, and all the loopholes, if we want, if has to be sealed up from the day one. But whatever is left should be a progressive, and improvement should come up in following updates. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you. I can safely say that we are now on our last three speakers. We will give the mic to Mr. Ashutosh Singhal, followed by Shishu Siroti, and Mr. Akhil Paul.
Good evening, ma'am. I hope I am audible. My first point is like a penalty should be percentage wise, like according to company net worth. If you will put 10,000 fine on the startup, it will be good punishment. But if you will put same amount on penalty on Google, Microsoft, LinkedIn, Spotify, or any other company, big companies, it will be not good because that is that is nothing in front of their capacity. Second point, guidelines should be also applicable on NGO because it is applicable on government as well as private, right? But NGO, non-government organization, is not government. I believe it is also not private. Third point, there should be strict punishment on the government auditor. The Department of Empowerment of Persons with Disabilities made so many apps, Sugamya Bharat app, but that is also inaccessible. Saksam for election, that is inaccessible, and one website also for Skill India. I am not able to remember. That is also inaccessible. So government auditors also should punish properly. I hope I made some sense. Thank you.
Thank you. Who's the next speaker? Mr. Akhil Paul.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you very much. And all my colleagues from the sector have made some very valid and good points. I have 3 points, ma'am. One is on the universal design principles. I propose that it should be inclusive planning when we do that. When I say inclusive planning, spaces, we have talked about buildings and everything. We need not forget the services, particularly healthcare and education, which requires a lot of support and a lot of monitoring as well, making it accessible to all. And when I say all with physical, sensory, cognitive disabilities, we need not do a special modification later if we do it. And because I work with deafblind people, I would propose adding the tactile communication and interpreter support, human interpreter support, which is required. Second, and on the assistive technology integration, on digital accessibility, I think we need to have features. Dipendra Bhai and others have already talked about websites, mobile apps, public information systems, WCAG, all that is fine, but making it inclusive, procurement a necessity. I think if all government procurement prioritize assistive technologies, then we will set a standard for private adoption as well. So if we start with the government, it will be useful, ma'am. Third, comprehensive inclusion across disabilities. So having disability specific solutions to address unique needs of diverse disabilities. I've spoken about deafblind. So sign language and tactile sign language interpreters for deafblind and captioning for deaf individuals with hearing impairment. We've talked about audio navigation and cognitive accessibility guidelines for people with intellectual disabilities. I think Dr. Smriti was mentioning something about it, but that's very, very important. And the most important thing, I feel that intersectionality, ma'am, in accessibility, the factors which overlap in terms of the barriers due to gender, caste, rural and urban divide, the economic disparities. So if we, in our sort of guidelines, if we say that we deploy targeted intervention in underdeveloped regions, that will help us gain that balance. And as civil society, we are all with you, ma'am. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next is Ms. Shishu Saroti, and then we will hear Vaishnavi Jayakumar, please. Saroti, are you going to speak? While we wait for Shishu, I think Vaishnavi, why don't you take the stage? Vaishnavi Jayakumar, please.
Yeah. Hi. Good evening. Firstly, we had sent a representation signed by more than 150 people across India regarding this process and a few things which needed to be done in parallel along with it. I'll also send it to you since you are, kind of driving this initiative. So I'm not going to repeat myself on that front, but there are three things that we need the DEPWD to do, which were not mentioned in that representation. And one is there was a monitoring website uh, of the AIC, which had all the states giving inputs on buildings which were being, kind of accessified, or buses which were details about the buses, etc. And that website, though it was brought in 2019, seems to have gone offline. We'd like that restored, please, and updated, on an ongoing basis, because that way we have some record of, what the states are submitting, and that way we can call out the states on that front if they're reporting erroneously. Secondly, the earlier AIC access audit reports were removed from the department's website, ostensibly because it was slowing the website down. We understand that. Perhaps you could have a separate, kind of online library elsewhere, because otherwise we're finding that the same places are being, kind of proposed for auditing time and again, and that's a complete waste. Thirdly, the Sugamya Bharat app. And while I mean, I think, and that we should really be focusing on new infrastructure as of now, and the retrofitting can kind of come a little later, because it is a tremendous exercise which will exhaust everyone. But while that is happening, I think it's important that we use this time and as a kind of awareness, so that other ministries and other departments are kind of aware of their obligations. And to that end, if the Sugamya Bharat app can be made public facing, we don't need to know who has made the complaint. That can be anonymized, but let people just start giving in inputs, and let the department start fixing those inputs using the Supreme Court order on a real time basis. So at least let the retrofit be on demand. And there are some things which will be very easy. For example, yesterday we got a request about a building in Mumbai, which is a central government building, the fisheries building, which is inaccessible because the lifts are not working. Now that's something that the department can do very easily, and pull people up, because there are disabled employees in that building who are struggling. So that's a small example of using the Sugamya Bharat app to kind of keep other people on their toes, and to troubleshoot on demand, rather than the entire retrofitting of India, which is a huge task. Thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who would like to speak? And I have not managed to
Can you
call out.
hear me?
Yes,
you
we
hear
can
me?
hear you. Yes, we can.
Sorry. I'm Ketaki Bordaloy, speaking on behalf of Shishu Sharathi, and we are also empaneled access auditors for the Accessible India campaign. My colleagues who manage the access audit also are constantly come up with this issue of the problem of the dilemma of enforcing accessibility in places where the geographical terrain is difficult, particularly in the Northeast region. We work in Assam, and we have done access audits in different states of the region, and states like Mizoram and Meghalaya, Nagaland, for instance, where most buildings are extremely inaccessible. If as you go forward, if when these universally designed buildings are or physical spaces are being considered, the issue of geographical terrain is also factored in. It would be a huge help. Thank you.
Is there anybody else who would like to speak? Otherwise, we have come to the end
Can I
of this
speak,
discussion.
Madam? P.N. Andare?
Yes, please.
Madam, I'm a wheelchair-bound person, and I wanted to make one point. The hospitals to be made accessible, all that they do is to provide ramps at the entrance and the steps. But what makes hospital different? When you go to hospital, you have to undergo various tests like MRI, X-ray, sonography, and examination table. All these are at a height. For a wheelchair-bound person, it becomes very difficult to get transferred from the wheelchair to this table. So what I said, to order to make hospitals accessible, they should have wheelchair whose height can be adjusted from 20 inches to 30 inches so that he can be transferred from the wheelchair to the MRI table, X-ray table, sonography table, X-ray table, so that life becomes very easy. Otherwise, when I visit hospitals, I find it difficult that every time I have to be lifted and transferred to that table. So if something can be made to a wheelchair can be arranged in a hospital whose height can be varied so that that man need not be lifted and can be taken for any test in that hospital. So this is what I think should be done to make hospitals accessible in India. Thank you.
Thank you. I think there's one more speaker. Pradeep Raj, would you like to speak? Anybody else whom I've missed inadvertently? Yes, Professor Sanjay Jain. 1 point again. Yes, please.
Just half a minute. I think we would miss the bus if we don't thank Center for Disability Studies for having brought out such a brilliant report, because that report has shown us the mirror about our accessibility record. And I think when whatever we want to do, we should use that report as a resource. And I personally pay highest tribute to Professor Dhanda for, enlivening an issue which was almost become dormant in the government records. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. So
Can
I
I
think
speak?
we
Can I speak, ma'am? This is Asif.
yes,
Yeah,
Asif, please go ahead.
my name is Asif. I work for PwC. I'm also a blind individual. Ma'am, in the era of startup and especially in m-commerce, and when the government is very keen on focused on ease of living, ma'am, I really, really strongly feel that we should have non-negotiable criteria when they start up. They start some kind of services, especially on the m-com or mobile commerce, that at least they should follow the principle of universal design and digital accessibility. And this should definitely be considered as non-negotiable. Let's say in today's age, if I wanted to order medicines, sadly, I couldn't do that. There are so many startups, even the prominent and renowned one, but this cannot be done. And as Dipender sir pointed out, that we have ICT standard, and I was also privileged to contribute to that. We should at least have one harmonized guidelines for it, as far as digital platform and digital commerce is concerned, which should be definitely on a non-negotiable list. Thank you. Over to you, ma'am.
Thank you. So I'm just quickly summarizing. I will not get into very
Can
detailed
I
points.
say one sentence?
Yes, please.
I just wanted to say, ask one thing. We have a network which is discussing this. After how many days do you give us to send our responses?
I mean, I would be grateful if it comes as soon as possible, but maybe you can take another 3-4 days, 5 days. Is that workable?
Okay. Yeah, 5 days is fine.
Great.
Because I work on disasters and climate change, and we have very specific issues, and also the network of women with disabilities would like to send in something. Thank you so much.
Thank you. I have also shared my email ID in the chat box. I will read it out once again for everyone. It's manenda@ias.nic.in. We have received a lot of very enriching insights and a lot of inputs that one can go in. It is definitely very clear that there is a requirement for basic, non-negotiable, mandatory provisions, which is cutting across physical infrastructure and public spaces that may come under the purview of many, many departments. But as long as they are visited by the public, the common people, and people with disabilities, they all need to have these basic requirements. We have also spoken about born accessible, as in anything that is new, it is completely has to be of a universal design and norm, taking into requirements of people with disabilities and across disabilities. And new infrastructure, everything has to be born accessible, of course, unless there are certain relevant sectoral guidelines themselves that would require it to be so. A very important aspect of all these guidelines slash rules or standards lies on the enforcement machinery that needs to be strong and strict, whether it is withholding of any kind of clearances or NOCs for physical or digital infrastructure, and with strict penalties that are quickly given and also taken up before that change is also initiated and that change is required to be done. Of course, the work on retrofitting and the work on evolving guidelines should continue. The work on interacting with different stakeholders like the one we did today, and also stakeholders that belong to the private sector, for people with disabilities, with caregivers, with organizations that work with people with disabilities, with advocacy groups, with advocates and lawyers, needs to be a continuous affair, and it should be done regularly. The aspect of having apps or websites which help in giving out information and to make it available to the public has been noted. I will find out the reason of why it was stopped. I would also look into using the Sugamya Bharat app as a way of obtaining public insight into issues dealing with accessibility, and also a way to keep us on our toes for different ministries and department, so that we are not revisiting issues and giving prompt and fast solutions. We would also, as a group, look into accessibility requirements and ways of them being enforced internationally that should help us to bring greater clarity in this regard. The role of a domain regulator in terms of enforcement of guidelines slash standards is definitely very important. And the powers and role of the commissioners is undoubtedly extremely important to ensure performance of these standards, applicability to them, and ensuring that any oversight or non-compliance is dealt with strictly and swiftly. Thank you all for your participation today. I would look forward to your written comments, if any, that you would like to give us on my email. Yes, it would be possible, and it will be a continuous meeting exercise where we will bring on specific meetings, say with the transport sector involving railways, road transport, airport, DGCA. We would like to continue to do that, and also Mahua probably, who is responsible for the National Building Code. I think that could also be a quick start to it. I also agree that there is a requirement for an expert subgroup who can help us define these tasks and also ensure quick and easier way of implementation it without getting exhausted in the rigmarole of administrative language and other issues. I once again thank you all for your involvement
Madam,
today.
one thing in your summary you have missed out.
Yes, please tell me, Mr. Rohit.
Point that I made
Yeah.
about the putting in place the mechanism and procedures, because these are also accessibility issues.
Yes.
Like for instance, I gave you the example of personal mobility. I gave you the example
Yes,
of
it is. All this refers to taking into account with people across the disabilities. Definitely, that point is well noted. I'm only summarizing from whatever I have.
No, I'm only
noted in
saying,
memory.
madam, the
I'm sure
mechanism,
this
the
this
issue
is
of
this
putting
entire
in place the
document is
mechanism
being
and procedure.
recorded. Yes, the point is well taken. Thank you. The entire document and the conversation today is recorded. We will go through it all over again as well. None of your comments, suggestions, or words will go unnoticed for sure. And thank you all for getting involved in this conversation today, and look forward to many such more meetings and to also meet you in face over the period of my staying here in this department. Please stay safe. Take care. Have a good evening. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thanks so much. Hope this will be shared in the public domain. We've been trying to copy the chats because there's a lot of useful information, but no luck. So, yeah.
Thank you all.